Hi, We Time Convo listeners. Today we have a special guest, Hylan.
Hi, Debbie. Hi, everyone.
Hi, thank you for joining us. And today we'll be talking about RTO, the return to office dilemma. Hi, good morning, Hylan.
Good morning, Debbie.
Thanks for joining and stepping in while Liza's enjoying herself off in the motherland.
The Philippines.
Yes, she is. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. I was just recently notified at work. So there's an abbreviation going on. It's RTO. Does anybody know what RTO stands for?
Return to office.
Yes. So it was a big hoopla at my work because they've officially announced that they're looking at employees to come back to the office 5 days a week. So it's a little bit of a interesting dynamic because, God, it's just the journey from COVID to now and how people's lives have changed and how we've figured out, like, you know, for the most part, there's a good chunk of the population who works that have figured out they can actually work from home.
Yeah.
Obviously there's another population that has never experienced that because their job requires them to be on site. But there was a good chunk that, we figured out how to work from home, and in all purposes of it have been pretty successful.
And COVID's been like 5 years.
I know. Isn't that wild?
People have gotten used to it. It's like half a decade.
Yes. Well, Hylan, so it's been a bit buzz in where I'm at because it officially got announced. So obviously that's top of mind for me. But how about you? Have you experienced anything in regards to return to office?
So I'm at Google, but I'm actually staffed at Google. So I actually had the opportunity to become like full-time again, like a regular full-time employee at Google, but I kind of opted out for that. Because that way I don't have to go back into the office. Because if you are a regular FTE, you have to be in the office at least 3 days a week.
So a hybrid model.
Yeah, but if you are quote unquote vendor, like you're staffed there, you don't have to follow that rule. So that was my way around it.
Got it. So from your perspective, that was a big decision point for you.
Sure.
Was whether or not you wanted to have the flexibility. Correct. Or, be in office. And I can say that there's pros and cons to both.
I think there is, right? Personally, for me, the pros are definitely like more time in the morning for yourself. I think less stress in terms of traffic and the commute. And then I think also in the evening, you have more time and flexibility for like things like working out, cooking dinner and things like that. And then I have a part-time small business that also gives me flexibility to attend to things I need to attend to during the day.
Yep.
So that for me was like a big like win. I think on the con side is that I really do miss like the in-person interaction and the creativity. That
being around people, right? Yep. No, I totally agree with you. I see all of that as benefits. Now, cons as well. The biggest con is, like you said, it's there's a vibe and an energy of being around other people, right? And just being able to be creative and feed off each other, right? There's an energy.
There's also a con to that, which is gossip.
That is true too. I mean, and also like in ways people have their own little pockets of people, correct, right? Yeah. Because, not to say that it's like high school, but there's people gravitate towards each other. And so sometimes you might be the person who gets excluded.
How long is your commute?
So I actually go into the city. Yes. And so I am actually outside of the 50-mile radius. So I technically would be considered a remote employee. However, because of my role, I would like to go into the office. The challenge is the commute, right? When we think about, like, if I have a meeting at 9:30, I'm usually leaving the house at 6:30. in order to make sure that I'm in there by 9:30, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Have you considered public transportation?
Yes. And that's actually, I'll rephrase. If I need to go in at 8:30, I will leave at 6:30. I'll take BART. I used to take Caltrain. I'll take BART. And that will give me maybe about a 20-minute buffer. But there could be anything that happens between my commute time, right? So I even remember that 20-minute buffer I actually used up the last time because there was the rain that we had to deal with. So the BART was a little slow. And I barely made it into my 8:30 meeting. So if you can imagine, not only is the just kind of, you have to plan your day,
Correct.
but also the stress of being on the commute, knowing that, hey, I have an 8:30 that I need to hit, and going like, how much longer is it going to be? So San Jose is about an hour away from San Francisco. So when I say the city, I'm actually referencing San Francisco. People ask, like, how did you do it pre-COVID? Well, pre-COVID, you just did it, right? And you know, actually pre-COVID was even more challenging because I had a little one. My daughter was growing up. And so between her and my dad and my family and friends, we kind of had to like communally figure out like if I was going to get stuck or if he was going to get stuck or if there was an emergency, somebody would have to pick her up. So pre-COVID, it was just something that we lived with. But the challenge now is this is after COVID, and now you know that you can actually, you know, work from home and be successful at it. So it's really hard to kind of go back. And I feel really, I feel for people who are dealing with it, who now have a new, like during COVID, you know, you might have gotten a child, you might have gotten, you know, a puppy or, you know, a pet. And now like those are the challenges that I'm thinking of is, yeah, while my daughter can now like drive herself and be more self-sufficient, guess what? I also adopted a dog. So what do I do with my dog, right?
Yeah.
And then I think there's another population of people as well that are now dealing with elderly parents. So it's really evolved from pre-COVID to like, this is a new situation, a new challenge that people have to think about. So again, I can see the pros and cons, but it's very challenging. The other aspect is it's been, like you mentioned, it's been 5 years. Guess what? I got to relook at my wardrobe.
That's true. You know, my clothing and all my wardrobe has changed.
Yes. And so it's like, I'm kind of thinking like, oh my God, I have some stuff that, you know, I've been living in like yoga pants and sweaters. And so those now I have to like rethink. And then I have to think about like, you know, I've been wearing like sneakers. And so these are things that I have to now consider and probably have to kind of refresh my wardrobe as well.
No, I'm with you. It's like before COVID, I was all dressed up and did my hair.
Exactly.
I drove to the office. I wore like tight pants. And then now I'm like, all my pants are loose. All my shoes are sneakers.
Yes. And I'm like, I'm not trying to get into any high heels or anything like that. Right. So I got to figure out like, what is this going to look like? What is this going to... Yeah, so a lot to think about, but I do feel for people because, you know, like I said again, the commute is already challenging, but then there's these other things, these other factors that we have to consider. I think for me, it is disappointing because the expectation obviously has evolved, and so I have to figure out whether or not this is the journey that I can go through successfully and be happy.
Is there a transition period?
There is. So I have to say that my company has been really good about that transition period. I've heard some companies are like, they announce it via email and they expect it next week. My company has been really good and really thoughtful. Our transition period is September. So between now and September, they're open to you guys figure out what you need to do. But by September, they're really looking for everybody to be in the office 5 days a week, unless they were specifically hired to be a remote employee.
Wow. How long have you been at the company?
I've been at the company. It'll be a year in April.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. You were never fully in office, like full time.
No. So I think that, again, more to come. I obviously this is a work in progress, and we're expecting an employee survey to come out. So I'm sure there's going to be some feedback there. Hylan, I can totally see like the benefits of obviously having the flexibility, right? Do you ever think about going into work or?
Well, yeah, I was asked if I wanted to be, be converted back to like a regular full-time employee.
But do you ever have to go like even like
as a,
just like one-offs?
Yeah, I went once in the last 6 months. Pre-COVID, there were perks with going to the office, right? I didn't have to make breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And I had like a workout class at Google. So I'm like, all right, it's a good trade-off.
Yeah, no. So I think that's another thing that a lot of companies are trying to do is figure out like how to like make it more enjoyable for people to come in. What does that look like? And I know some companies that are offering opportunities. If you come in these certain days, we'll give you $15 that you can spend on food, in their cafeteria.
Oh, $15.
Well, I mean, better than nothing. I think that's the other thing too that people don't understand is the expense of actually going into the office.
Gas, time, and also I personally think that the other drawback is that the mental bandwidth, right? You spend a lot of mental bandwidth commuting.
Yes.
And I personally believe that takes away from your ability to produce and be creative too. So there's the positive side of like, hey, you have like this social interaction that fuels creativity, but at the same time, like by the time you get into the office, you already spent a good amount of your mental bandwidth trying to navigate traffic and get there on time, not be late.
No, that's totally true. And that's probably one of the biggest downsides is the anxiety one feels about getting to somewhere at a certain time. Mm-hmm. And you're absolutely right. And it does wear on you mentally. For me, I have to see how it goes. But if I was to go in 5 days a week, that is a very challenging feat each week, because not like you said, time, mental health, just the ins and outs of all that. But then, as I had mentioned, cost. Like I actually calculated roughly how much it cost me a day to go into the office, excluding the drive to the BART station. The BART station each way is about, I would say, a little less than $10. So let's say $10 each way. So that's $20. I don't drink on BART because, again, I'm being thoughtful of like, well, it's an hour ride. I don't want to have to stop and use the restroom. So I don't drink on BART. So what ends up happening is I'll buy coffee at work, because work actually does not provide free coffee. So that's like another, let's say $4, right? Let's say $5, right? And then lunch. To be honest, I probably am not the best. Most people don't pack lunch. So I don't pack lunch, and lunch can average anywhere between $12 to $15. So that's already $40 just to go into work, $40 each time. So times that by 5.
Yeah.
And you're looking at,
I think that's on the cheap side too. Because
yes.
Lunch can go upwards. But especially San Francisco, right? I think like $20 can get you a sandwich.
It's true. I'm actually you're absolutely right.
And like $5 like a drip coffee. If you want a latte, it's like closer to 10.
So I would say at a minimum, you're looking at $40 to go into work. So that's like $200. It is going to be a challenge. My husband says, figure it out. He'll be supportive of whatever way I go. I think for me, it's because my work is so far. If it was closer, it probably wouldn't have been. Like you said, if you commuted 20 minutes, it's not going to be that much of a burden. But this is a huge uptaking for a lot of people.
I think prior to COVID, whenever I did look for a job, I always made sure that the company and the office I have to commute to is like in South Bay.
Yeah.
Furthest would be like Sunnyvale.
Yeah.
Or like
so you made a conscious decision that it wasn't going to be too far, just in case from a commute perspective.
Yeah. That's prior to COVID, but maybe we have to go back to that.
Well, here's my question. Like, because you are remote, I mean, do you feel like, one of the concerns of our remote people, because, if people are coming back into the office, you get more FaceTime. So the remote people are questioning, well, with this change, then how does that impact my career growth? Because now I'm remote, but then you're seeing people coming back into the office. They get more FaceTime. They're challenged as well, being remote employee. Do you ever feel like that could be a challenge for you?
I definitely think so, because I think even at some companies where I was remote and other people were remote, I feel like I had less visibility.
Yep.
But I think also, right, when you look and consider a job or career, you kind of have to ask yourself, like, what's your long-term goal with this job, right? Because there are people who have like other things going on. So, I mean, those things might not matter if you have something else going on for you.
Yeah, that's very true.
Right. And I mean, I think when I was going to the office, the reason why I put in so much effort and was like, so driven to just like get things right was that I, for a period of time, I was like, yeah, I'm going to climb the corporate ladder.
Yes.
But as you get older, you're like, especially right now, I'm like, not really sure if I really want to climb the corporate ladder anymore. I'm okay where I am.
No, I hear you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have like a mineral makeup company. What I'm wearing right now.
Oh.
I've been wearing my own makeup for a long time, but I figured I started during the pandemic. I figured I started because I've been using it for a long time, and I think there's a lot of not great products out there. There are like, I kind of mentioned I'm really into health and things like that. They're like long term not good for your skin, not good for your health. So that's my other thing on the side.
Wow, you have to tell us a little bit about this mineral makeup company. Yeah. I mean, what's the gist of this? You talk about
doesn't have any toxic chemicals. So most like conventional makeup, right, like regular liquid foundation, for example, has preservatives that are like paraben. Has like phthalates, fragrance, silicone, titanium dioxide. All these chemicals, like especially say for instance silicone, right? And some of these other chemicals that they put in the skin. Sorry, we're going off the subject.
I'm really interested, actually.
It actually breaks down collagen over time. And not only that, it actually increases your like susceptibility of like acne and other irritation, things like that, because it doesn't allow your skin to breathe, right? What ends up happening is like over time, you're more dependent on it, and your skin, like I think can also suffer from premature aging. I actually suffered a lot of skin issues from conventional makeup in the beginning. And that's how I got into mineral makeup and making my own, because I realized I'm like, oh no, like this is what's causing all my skin issues. I was breaking out. My skin was inflamed, red. And so it just became this like, this cycle of my skin looks so bad, I gotta put more makeup on, and then it took me so much time. It took me like an hour and a half sometimes to put on makeup before. Now it takes me like 30 minutes. So for me,
you cut it in half.
Mm-hmm. So for me, like back to work, right? You have to look good. Yes. You have to feel confident, but you also don't have a lot of time. So during my whole, I've been doing this for like, since I actually started making my own mineral makeup when I was like 18, 19. So it's been like, I'm 38 this year. It's been
20 years.
Close to 20 years, yeah.
Okay, so I generally don't wear makeup, but when I do, it's because there's some special occasion. But when you say you make your own mineral makeup, is there like place that you can go to do
no,
that?
I have my own mixer, like my own. I just bought also like a commercial mixer. You can have like a smaller mixer, but commercial mixer, it like
but
grinds.
where do you get all like?
Oh, you buy wholesale the ingredients.
Oh, so you literally, so it's not like you go into kind of this brick and mortar
No,
where it
I have
says
my own
make your
formula.
own, it says like come in and make your own mineral makeup. You literally like started it from like ground zero.
Correct. I at 18, 19, I was like in my dorm room reading
You're
a
like
bunch
a
of
chemist.
this. Yeah, exactly.
Like a
and then
chemist,
I like was
basically.
blending all this stuff, and I figured it out. I was like, oh, like, and then, you know, like again, it has a lot of trial and error, and then over time you realize, oh, like I don't need this ingredient, or like this ingredient isn't really good, because I experimented on myself, right? And I have like pretty sensitive skin. And also like very acne prone skin, especially when I was younger. So I kind of tried a lot of different ingredients and like color formulations as well to then figure out what was the best for me. And I realized I'm like, oh, what's best for me could probably be really good for other people.
So listeners, just FYI, I'm looking at Hylan right now, and I'm like, because she says she's wearing her own makeup, and I'm looking at you, and I would never know that you are wearing your own makeup. I would have just assumed that you were just wearing makeup that was out there.
Yeah.
That is fascinating to me that you just like from the ground up said, hey, I know it's something to do with my makeup. I don't want to give up makeup. Like me, I gave up makeup, and you just said, let me figure this out. And so you became your own little chemist to figure out like what works and what doesn't.
Yeah, because, you know, like you probably know as a woman in the office, right? Your looks actually do matter in terms of influence, right? And
Absolutely.
I knew that when I was really young, because I was like a nerd. So I always got picked on when I was in high school, right? And then so I had kind of a glow up like gradually after high school, and I realized I'm like, oh wow, I can get really ahead just by changing the way I look. And I don't want to give up makeup because that gives me kind of like
an edge.
Yeah, an edge. In the workplace and in my social life and in other areas, right?
Yeah.
But I also don't want it to like influence my skin and my biology in a bad way where I really feel like I need to be dependent, and it also you know, interferes with your self-confidence when you don't have it, right? Because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, you're gonna have to wash off your makeup, and say if you're in a relationship with someone, or even like people who come unannounced, you don't want to feel like, oh my God, I look so terrible. Like, you know, I don't want to show my face, because that's how I felt.
Got it.
Yeah.
So Hylan, I know we're deviating from our RTO conversation, but this is interesting to me because you've been doing this and it's been working for you. My curiosity now is like, are you like looking to grow it by selling it to others, or like is it just more for personal use?
No, yeah. So that's why I have my business. I actually have a business. I have an e-commerce business. So it's called HylanMinerals.com.
That's the you guys check it out. Check it out. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Tell
and
me.
I'm like coming out with like other things too. Like I said, I think a lot of decisions I make and like the products I use are really around health, right? We had like that whole episode on health, and so I kind of mentioned like a lot of personal care products, including makeup, has a lot of toxic chemicals that influence not just, and we'll get into this in a different like episode, but not only influence your skin, like the surface level, right? But influences everything from like your hormones and reproductive too. So that's kind of, I was like interested in talking about the declining birth rates because it has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, no. Well, Hylan, I'm even more fascinated. I think we need to do a specific one. I don't use a lot of makeup, but like I said, I think the journey that you've gone to in order to kind of, at the end of the day, you're now like have your e-commerce, and really it sounds very passionate and very personal to you. So I can imagine this is a journey that's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, that's why I don't want to return to office.
Well, and I think that's the thing, right? It's like these are things that you've learned to kind of balance out between kind of, again, your, I don't know if I say dream, right? A personal dream or goal. And then you have obviously your professional one. I mean, you worked really hard to obtain your professional goal and your professional dreams. But, you know, we are all evolving, right? So you made a personal choice to say, you know what, it may impact me from growing professionally, but you're okay with that because you have now found something else that takes a little bit more precedence over that.
Yeah, correct. And I think, you know, just going back to the return to office thing, right? I feel like people who I think have to, you know, deal with that, you know, I personally think would suggest like, look at what your priorities are, right? For me, it's like my priority is like my little business. Yep. But for other people, it could be like family, like you mentioned, right? And like, you have to kind of see like, what is important to me that I need to devote time for? And is it worth the sacrifice, like going back to office? Because there are a lot of jobs out there, right? Different opportunities you can pursue. And, you know, career isn't everything. And I feel like people at the top, I think, should consider that too, is in terms of accommodation and like.
I think they do. Yeah. I mean, I get the sense that from my company that they're very thoughtful. I mean, they did offer a couple of benefits of obviously rolling out this return to office. I think for us that are obviously impacted, I agree with you. You have to take a kind of a stand and ask yourself, what's your priority? What's important? And is this the journey for me? Because to your point, there's other opportunities, right? And I know people don't like change, but sometimes change is good. And so maybe the place that you're in isn't the place that you're really meant to be. And so it's just the fear of moving to something else because that's a change. But maybe moving to something else actually fits into kind of like that priority that you've set for yourself, right? I think a lot of people are fearful, and so they just live with the unhappiness of trying to fit into this like box that is given to them. But to your point, maybe just step out of that box and then you'll see that, you know, there's something else actually better for you.
Yep.
And I think most companies, when they kind of draw that line, I think they're also aware that, you know, people they're going to see attrition. So yeah, I don't know. So RTO, guys, RTO, the world is changing. COVID's 5 years ago. And then now we're evolving. So I think more to come, but it'll be interesting to see where we're at 5 years from now. Right?
Yep.
So, but thank you, Hylan.
Thank you.